Hello, hello. All right, Exodus 38. I'm here at work right now, even though it's in the evening. Practice got done. I had an hour to run home, get chores done, see my wife and kid, and then I'd come back in for parent-teacher conferences. But since I'm a PE teacher, I have no one coming to see me. That's just the way it usually goes. So, as you can see right out there, that's my gym, and I got no parents coming. So, let's get a video done. I'm going to be reading Exodus 38 today. We're going to do a study on it. Again, these next few chapters for me personally, they're not the fun ones. I always say I've read the Bible from front to back twice, but I've read the whole Bible in its entirety 4 times. I know I've read almost every book at least 4 times, with the exception of those really short prophet ones at the end of Old Testament, because I feel like they're saying the same thing over and over again. I know it's wrong, but these are the chapters that when I'm rereading it for over and over again, I always just skip over, because I'm like, all right, they're building the tabernacle, all right, they built the ark, all right. It just feels like an instruction manual, So instead, I needed to do a deep dive into each chapter for this, and it is interesting how much more you get out of it when you really are like, okay, I have to study this chapter, even though I find this chapter to be boring and useless. Nothing is useless, though. Here we go. Exodus 38, more on building the tabernacle. So, he made the altar of burnt offering of acacia wood. 5 cubits was its length, and 5 cubits its width. It was square, and its height was 3 cubits. He made its horns on its 4 corners. The horns were of one piece with it, and he overlaid it with bronze. He made all the utensils for the altar, the pans, the shovels, the basins, the forks, and the fire pans. All its utensils he made of bronze. And he made a grate of bronze network for the altar under its rim, midway from the bottom. I wonder if that was for sacrifices, for the grate at the altar. I don't know for sure. Don't quote me on that one. He cast 4 rings for the 4 corners of the bronze grating as holders for the poles. Still for the ark. Don't ignore that. And he made the poles of acacia wood and overlaid them with bronze. Then he put the poles into the rings on the sides of the altar with which to bear it. He made the altar hollow with boards. So, growing up, from the age of whatever that I can remember, 5, 6, maybe a little younger, for Christmas, I would always get my mom 2 gifts. One I bought at the store, and it's something cheap, like a spatula or oven mitt, The other one I'd make. As a child, it's something you would make at Sunday school. Then, maybe kindergarten, you make something at school. And so on, so on. But as I got older, I continued that, not so much anymore now. Sorry, Mom. But up until, almost my 20s probably, I would always make her something and get her something, in case the thing I made sucked. But she always loved the thing I made way more. And a lot of them were god-awful. I mean, I made this butt ugly that she still has today. As a picture of me, and then I made out of toothpicks and twisty wires and all this, a body for myself and an ornament to put on the tree, and she still puts it up and it looks awful, but she loves it. And what I'm getting from this chapter here is they're making this for God themselves. Okay, they just left Egypt. They got wealth. If you don't remember, when they left Egypt, they took a lot of treasure with them. They basically raided it, pay us for all those years of service, sort of thing. They could just go trade. Why don't they just go? We don't need to build all this stuff. I mean, every little thing. He made the forks. He made the pans, the shovels. Okay, I get making the ark, making your own tabernacle. Every little thing, every little detail, they're making on their own from the supplies, from the treasures that they took from Egypt. So these treasures are being given to God, essentially, because once you make this stuff, it's not like you can unless you abandon your faith entirely, you're not going to melt it down and reuse it. So they're giving up their treasures to make it on their own for God, instead of trading for these things, getting fancy forks by trading some of the treasure for them, things like that. They're putting the effort in for themselves. Think about how much more that means to God, but also how much more it means to them. Again, I felt far more love for my mom. Not that I never didn't feel it, but I felt more connection and a deeper gratitude and love when I was making the gift for her versus when I just went and bought it. And that's what I see going on here. That's the thing I'm taking from a lot of this, is how much they put in themselves to make this. The church that I go to here, and the people anymore, they're not the same people. I think my family is one of the few that can trace back to the beginning of the church. I don't even know if we can go back to the actual beginning, but there's a lot of rich tradition about how they built the church themselves and all this stuff, and the people came together and to have a place to worship together. When you put that effort in yourself, it's like taking ownership of something. And now they're taking ownership of their faith, of their dedication to the Lord. They're putting their money where their mouth is. They're doing it. They're putting it in action. All right, moving on, verse 8. He made the laver of bronze and its base of bronze, from the bronze mirrors of the serving women who assembled at the door of the tabernacle of meeting. Okay, so I did a little bit of study ahead of time, and what people talk about with this verse, and it makes sense to me, is so these, you go back to Exodus 30 something here, I think I can find it actually, Exodus 30, 17 through 21. It talks about these mirrors with bronze, basically as the rim for them, that the women had from Egypt. They'd taken them from Egypt. And we probably take for granted it's mirrors today, but having a mirror was a big thing. That's how you looked at yourself. You really, unless you go to a lake or something, you don't get to see what you look like ever. You can see what other people look like, but you don't get to see yourself. And these women, this was like their way of looking at themselves and seeing their beauty. And we all know today, and this isn't every woman, my wife isn't this way, but a lot of women enjoy their time in front of the mirror. They use the mirror, they like the mirror. So these women are giving up probably their most prized possessions to make this, to take the bronze from our mirrors. Now we don't have mirrors anymore. So they're sacrificing for it, sacrificing what would be probably their biggest treasure. It says right here in Enduring Word Bible, it is wonderful to think that these women gave up their ability to measure their own physical beauty to make this reservoir of the water of ceremonial washing. By analogy, it may be said that some are so focused on looking at themselves that they fail to look to Jesus. It is always time to surrender such a mirror to Jesus. I mean, kind of corny, but I like the message behind it. And of course, these are the serving women who assembled at the door of the tabernacle. And what's this tell us? It tells us that there are women, or a group of women, who would always meet outside the tabernacle to offer whatever aid they could to the priests. And we see this all the time. I mean, it's a joke at most churches that the old church ladies run the place. And it's sad because that's kind of dying off now, at least from what I can tell, being a lifelong churchgoer, that there's a big gap. There's people in there's people in their 70s, and then there's people in their 30s, 40s. There's a gap of 30 years for a lot of them. My parents and my aunts and uncles where I go are the gap fillers there, but a lot of them had to step up early on and fill these roles from a much younger age than normal. It's just weird because, again, it used to always be the old church ladies. Going back to the SNL skit, they ran the church. Everyone knew they ran the church. They were the one answering the phones, making the schedules. The minister gave the sermon, and he was the face, but the old ladies ran the church, and they were always there to offer whatever help. We got a bake sale, let's go. We'll organize it, we'll get everything together. We got a children's Bible school retreat this summer. Okay, great. We'll set it up, we'll get everything going, we'll have the snacks ready, and the lessons, and blah, blah, blah. And that's what was going on clear back in this time. These women, they don't have as much to offer. They don't have the engineering skills. They don't have all the stuff to be able to make this tabernacle or the strength to load, but they can be there to offer whatever help might be necessary, water, fetch water for them, even to offer prayers. And here, right away, as soon as asked, they give up these mirrors, their most prized possessions. Again, it's a boring chapter if you just glance at it, but when you get deep down into it, you see that there's a lesson. The lesson is to dedicate your work to the Lord. If you put in the work, it means so much more. I see this as a coach in sports all the time. The person, and especially in elementary kids, the kids who are athletic from a very young age naturally, and unless they have good support roles at home and good leaders in the household, they end up being terrible in junior high or in high school because they never had to work. It was always easy. So anytime something hard, I'll present them with a workout that's hard or a different skill. Okay, you're great, but we got to work on your reaction time. Oh, you're not too good at it. They don't want to do it. They don't like it. Done. But the kids who put the work in, they feel so much more reward when they make an achievement, even if it's less of an achievement than the naturally talented kids. And so we all know this from our life, that when you put the work into something, it means so much more to you. And that's what the Israelites are doing at this time. They're putting the work in, their time, their sweat, their blood, their treasures into something for the Lord. So they're putting it into their faith. They're putting it into the dedication to the Lord. And it's going to mean that much more to them. Hopefully. I mean, we all know how it really turns out in the Old Testament and how the Israelites really turn out. All right, moving on. Then he made the court of the south side. The hangings of the court were of fine woven linen, 100 cubits long. There were 20 pillars for them, with 20 bronze sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were silver. On the north side, the hangings were 100 cubits long, with 20 pillars and with their 20 bronze sockets. The hooks of the pillars and their bands were silver. And on the west side there were hangings of 50 cubits, and 10 pillars and their 10 sockets. The hooks of the pillars on their bands were silver. For the east side, let me guess, 50. Yep, the hangings were 50 cubits. So it's a rectangle, 10 by 50. The hangings of one side of the grate were 15 cubits long, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets, and the same for the other side of the court gate. On this side and that were hangings of 15 cubits, with their 3 pillars and their 3 sockets. All the hangings of the court all around were of fine woven linen. The sockets of the pillars were bronze, the hooks of the pillars and their bands were silver, and the overlay of the capitals were silver, and all the pillars of the court had bands of silver. The screen of the gate of the court was woven of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and of fine woven linen. The length was 20 cubits, and the height along its width was 5 cubits, corresponding to the hangings of the court. And there were 4 pillars with their 4 sockets of bronze. Their hooks were silver, and the overlay of their capitals and their bands was silver. All the pegs of the tabernacle and of the court all around were bronze. Man, Bible sure made it easy for people to remake things. Because again, I've said this before, it's essentially a blueprint, owner's manual of all this stuff. They go into so much detail, and it's boring style detail. It's not like world building detail like Tolkien does. No, it's blah blah blah, 20 rings, 20 each silver, and instead of just saying the same thing on the other side, no, they go into detail again. Shows me that God is all about the details, because guess what, devil's in the details. But again, they're putting the work in themselves. They're doing all this. And think about what a community effort that would be. All right, verses 21 through 23. This is the inventory of the tabernacle of the testimony, which was counted according to the commandment of Moses for the service of the Levites by the hand of Ithamar, son of Aaron the priest, Bezalel, the son of Uri, the son of Hur, of the tribe of Judah, made all that the Lord had commanded Moses. And with him was Aholiab, the son of Ahazamach, of the tribe of Dan, an engraver and designer, a weaver of blue, purple, and scarlet thread, and fine linen. So again, Moses gets the instructions, gives them to basically the head overall, what's the word I'm looking for? Site manager, I guess, of this construction. Bezalel, the son of Uri, that's who that is. And then like his go-to guy who has the designer, the architect. So Bezalel is like the final say, the site manager, or the contractor, whatever you want to call him. And he has overall instruction. Aholiab is like the architect and the designer. You know, he's the one who comes up with the plans. Bezalel puts them into action, makes sure everything goes well. So those are the two guys. I don't know how important that is or why I even went into describing it, but verse 24, all the gold that was used in all the works of the holy place, that is, the gold of the offering, was 29 talents and 730 shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. 29 talents, some estimate a talent to equal about 70 pounds, wow, or 32 kilos. This means there was something like 2,030 pounds or 920 kilos of gold used in the tabernacle. So what, today, gold's at like, 2,000 an ounce right now. Dang and dang. Verse 25 through 28. And the silver from those who were numbered of the congregation was 100 talents and 1,775 shekels, according to the shekel of the sanctuary, a bakah for each man, that is half a shekel, according to the shekel of the sanctuary. Shekel of the sanctuary is like their measurement of what a shekel is. For everyone included in the numbering from 20 years old and above. So everybody 21 and above had to give a half a shekel's worth of silver. Some probably gave more, you know, maybe that made up for some who gave less, but I doubt anyone gave less. You know, just to like save face in the community. If worst case scenario, they probably would have given it till. For 603,550 men, and from the 100 talents of silver were cast the sockets of the sanctuary and the bases of the veil. 100 sockets from the 100 talents, 1 talent for each socket. Then from the 100,775 shekels he made hooks of the pillars, overlaid their capitals, and made bands of them. Verse 29 through 31, the offering of bronze was 70 talents and 2,400 shekels, and with it he made the sockets for the door of the tabernacle of meeting, the bronze altar, the bronze grating for it, and all the utensils for the altar, the sockets for the court all around, the bases of the court gate, all the pegs for the tabernacle, and all the pegs for the court all around. Alright, so that's the end of chapter 38. I've said this before, but probably end up saying it again, I'm sure. Think about how easy it would have been for Moses, or the head architect guy, or one of these people to embezzle. Alright? They go into great detail, accountant style, Jew style, about how exact amount of each thing was used, where it was used, so you can prove it. It's like an audit almost. But they also the ones who wrote this. You know, so they could easily set some aside for themselves. But, and I've heard people make this argument, but we have to realize that wouldn't have worked. Okay, the people are looking to Moses and Aaron and these guys to be their leaders, but they're also constantly questioning him, constantly calling him out and doubting them. How would it have looked if suddenly Aaron and Moses had like a bunch of gold or silver? Like, what are they going to do with it? All right, are they going to go trade with these other communities now and get wealth from them? Like, no matter what, it's going to be seen. And these people who just gave up everything are like, what the F? Like, what are you doing? So the people, I'm not saying people watching this, both my viewers, but there are people out there who I've heard make that argument that Moses probably embezzled or stole, or I don't know. Yes, down the line, the priestly class became corrupt. But in this moment, it would have been literally impossible because the priests weren't supposed to be wealthy. The Moses didn't have anything. It was constantly being called out and questioned. You don't think him having a bunch of gold bracelets and like, he got a new grill, all this stuff, you don't think that would have been a little suspicious? So I just had to say that because one of my buddies was pointing that fact out. I'm like, let's think about this logically now. But again, these next few chapters, I really think the main thing I'm going to get out of it, and hopefully you get something similar or more, is to put work into your service to the Lord. Not just prayer. Prayer counts, and that alone is work. It takes time. It takes time to really sit down, take the headphones out, to turn everything off, and to sit and to say a prayer, and then sit in meditation afterwards and listen, feel for the Holy Spirit, to listen for that voice. I just think that when you are working for something, you feel more dedicated to that thing. So what better way to get these Israelites who have spent 400 years in bondage, 400 years basically under the rule of infidels, or whatever you want to call them, heathens, the Egyptians worshiping the pantheon, the polytheists, which basically those systems say you can do whatever you want. It's your own will. You do it. But now they're following what their ancestors followed before they went to Egypt, that they've tried to hold on to, but they've been so ingrained with this other culture, they're finding it very difficult. So God designs this purpose for them, this building where they have to put in time and effort and treasure and blood, sweat and tears, It's going to make them feel more dedicated to it. I'm sure a lot of people, Bible Study Bear, I'm an Owen Benjamin fan, obviously, so people watch this, and they're bears with the Owen Benjamin crowd, they know all about homesteading. You feel so much more connected and determined to make your garden work when you put in the work, when you started from seeds, when you set up those shelves before you even started from seeds, when you got the grow lights and you moved them outside, and you got the garden ready, you did all this. You're so much more dedicated to it. So it's the same concept when it comes to your faith, when it comes to God. You have to put that work in to really feel that connection. A lot of people are like, I don't feel connected to God. I'm like, yeah, dude, you also probably don't feel like you're in shape because you don't work out. Like, how can you feel connection to God if you're not putting in work for that connection? That's not how life works. I don't feel a connection to my wife. Well, do you put any effort into the relationship? No. It's like, duh, all right? Anyway, Exodus 38. I hope you guys enjoyed it. You've helped me get through about half an hour of my 4 hours I got to be here for no parent-teacher conferences. No one cares what their kids doing in PE, and if they do, it's a town of 2,000. I see them all over the place, and they just talk to me. Anyway, hope everyone has a wonderful afternoon, evening, or good night. God bless.